Hey there, Night Owl. Welcome back, or maybe welcome for the very first time. Tonight, we're shrinking down, or way down, into the secret underworld beneath your feet. A place where leaves are mountains, raindrops are disasters, and a million tiny lives move with perfect purpose. We're spending this evening with the ant. Not just one, but the whole mysterious colony. Queens who never walk again, sisters who farm fungi, soldiers who guard against invisible wars. It's a whole civilization you've probably stepped over 1,000 times without even knowing. Let's settle in and explore. If you're here to fall asleep, relax, or just float for a while, you're in the right place. This story is soft on the surface, but deep with wonder. You might drift off halfway through, or you might lie awake, thinking about tunnels and pheromones and tiny jaws. Both are totally fine. This space is yours. If you're enjoying these quiet science stories, a like or a subscribe would be a huge help. They really do let this little channel grow underground, kind of like the colony we're about to visit. And I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight. Drop it in the comments. Whether you're curled up in a Tokyo apartment nodding off in a tent in New Zealand, or procrastinating bedtime in rural Nebraska, I see you. You're not alone. So go ahead and take a deep breath. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your thoughts settle, like dust in a tunnel, like moss across stone, like twilight over a forest that no longer needs to be watched. This video is for relaxation and educational purposes only. Ready? Let's begin. Beneath the hush of the forest floor, under a curled dry leaf that trembles in the morning wind, a secret kingdom breathes. It is not large, at least not in the way we usually think of size. It fits in the palm of a child's hand. And yet, within that modest chamber of soil and root, a civilization pulses, ancient, complex, and unseen by most eyes. This is the world of the ant. If you were to lie quietly beside the leaf, nose to the ground, and truly listen, not with ears but with patience, you might hear the faint sound of life moving just beneath the crust of earth. It is the sound of six-legged architects tending to their tunnels, foragers marching in single-minded lines, and guards posted at invisible gates. The world above is wild and unpredictable, full of light and danger. But here in the cool, dark earth, order reigns. The colony began long ago with a single queen. She hatched once in the light. She flew on translucent wings for a single golden hour. And then she fell to earth, cast away her wings like forgotten dreams, and burrowed into the ground. There, in solitude and silence, she laid the first eggs, delicate pearls of life that would hatch into her daughters, her workers, her world. Now seasons have passed. The queen is deep within the heart of the nest, surrounded by warmth and constant tending. She no longer sees the sun, she doesn't need to. Her children, tireless, loyal, born without rest or hesitation, build, forage, defend, and serve. They are the breath of the colony. Above them the world goes on. Raindrops fall like meteors. A falling twig is a tree collapsing. A boot step is an earthquake. But down here, beneath the leaf, the ants move steadily. Quietly, they do not panic, they do not pause, they simply carry on. Their nest is not random. Every chamber has a purpose. The nursery hums with the soft rustling of larvae being fed. The granary holds seeds stolen from the surface, each one sorted and stored. Ventilation tunnels bring in cool air and sweep out the warm. The deeper you go, the quieter it becomes, a kind of temple of soil. To us, it may seem like instinct, but to the ant, it is a life lived with certainty, a map without lines, a memory passed not in words but in scent. Ants do not speak, not in voice. Instead, they write in perfume. Every ant carries a language in her body, chemical signals called pheromones. She can paint messages with her feet. Turn here, danger ahead, food this way, queen's chamber behind. Each scent is a sentence. Each step is a paragraph. The entire colony reads them with their antennae, touching the earth like fingertips over braille. At the edge of the nest, close to the surface, a forager pauses. Her name does not matter. Ants have no names. But if she did, she might be called something simple, something small, pebble, or dust. She stands in stillness for a moment. The air is cool. A breeze whispers through the blades of grass, and far above, birds sing to one another. It's safe for now. She steps out into the wide world. The forager follows a trail left hours before by her sisters, a winding thread of invisible scent laid like breadcrumbs. The path weaves beneath roots, around stones, and through a curtain of moss. She moves like memory, smooth, determined, not hurried but not wandering either. She knows where she's going, even if she's never been there before. That's the gift of the trail. Along the way, she meets others, returning foragers carrying seeds 3 times their weight, or slivers of dead insects. They greet one another briefly, antennae touching in a silent exchange. No words, just knowledge. There is food ahead. Danger past here. The nest is safe. A droplet of water glistens on a blade of grass. She stops. To her it is not a drop. It is a lake. Carefully she drinks, placing her tiny mouth against the curve of water and drawing in the coolness. Then she moves on. Far above, clouds drift. Time moves slowly, but down here the colony is always awake. There is no sleep as we know it. Workers take turns resting for moments, short, dreamless pauses, and then return to work. Their rhythm is not circadian like ours, bound to day and night. It is communal. The colony breathes as one. When the forager finds food, a crumb of bread, a fallen seed, a piece of fruit dropped by a bird, she doesn't eat. Not yet. First she marks it. She circles it slowly, laying down a stronger scent trail, a pheromone flag. Then she returns to the nest, moving faster now, following her own trail in reverse. She will lead others back with her. This is how they grow their world, together, always together. In the nest, the air is dense and warm. The walls are smooth, pressed by hundreds of feet. The sounds are soft but constant, the brushing of antennae, the shifting of grains, the quiet murmur of life in motion. It feels like a heart, not beating but flowing, a river made of bodies and intent. Near the queen, nurse ants cradle the young. The larvae are pale, soft and helpless, like tiny commas curled on the ground. They are fed constantly, licked clean, and turned to ensure they grow evenly. Some will become new workers, some may become soldiers, larger and stronger. And if the colony grows vast enough, if the season is right, a few may be chosen for flight, to become kings and queens in their own turn. But that day is far off. For now, the colony grows downward and outward, each chamber carved with care, each tunnel shaped to last. In the darker corners of the nest, old workers move slower. Their antennae tremble, their legs hesitate. Time catches even the smallest of lives. But they still carry grains. They still help lift the young. In the colony there is no retirement. There is only duty, softened by memory. Above, the sun sets. Shadows lengthen. The forest becomes quiet. But under the leaf life continues. The foragers return one by one, each carrying food for the whole. The trail fades, the scent grows weaker. Night will wash it away, but tomorrow they will make a new one. That is the way of the ant, constant renewal. A beetle passes near the entrance, its shell gleaming like armour. A guard ant watches from the threshold. She is smaller than the beetle, far weaker, but she stands firm. She will defend the colony with her life if needed. She does not hesitate. Bravery here is not chosen, it is lived. The moon rises, and somewhere beneath a fallen leaf in a pocket of earth no bigger than a closed fist, a kingdom sleeps with its eyes open. The queen breathes, the workers dream with their feet, and the world above continues, unaware of the empires that bloom and die just below its skin. She was born for a moment the sky almost forgot. One warm afternoon, just as the heat began to loosen its grip, and a veil of golden light slid over the horizon, she emerged. Not alone, never alone, but one among thousands. They rose from the earth together in a swarm like a cloud of sparks, caught in a slow-motion storm. Wings glimmered, bodies shimmered. For a breathless hour the air was full of ants. She had spent her early days below the ground, growing in the dark chambers of a mature colony. There, under the careful gaze of nurses, she was fed more and differently than her sisters. Her body grew larger. Her abdomen swelled with the future. Wings unfurled slowly, papery and delicate. She was destined not to work, but to carry the seed of a nation. And now, at last, her time had come. She rose into the sky on wings not built for elegance, but for purpose. The air was thick with pheromones, each male chasing the invisible signature of a queen's promise. They spiraled upward in a flurry of instinct and desire. Hundreds of young queens, each carrying the dream of a future empire, and thousands of males who would live only long enough to give her what she needed. They met in the sky, as their ancestors had done for millions of years, a dance older than memory, silent and sacred. Males found her mid-flight, gripped her body, and passed their gift of life, one after another. And when it was done, when she'd gathered enough to begin a world, she let the wind carry her downward. She landed not with grandeur but with exhaustion. Her wings twitched once, then again, and then she pulled them off. Not fell, pulled. She tore them from her body, snapping the base where they met her thorax. They were done. She would never fly again. That part of her story was finished. It is here the silence began. She stood on the forest floor, now just one among the stones and leaves, a creature reborn. Her wings gone, her mates gone, her colony behind. No workers to help her, no food, no tunnel, nothing. Only the weight of what she carried, the seeds of an entire civilization. Slowly she searched for a place to hide, a small hole in the earth, a crack in the root of a tree, an abandoned tunnel dug by something else. She sniffed the air, tasting safety. She did not rush. Queens that rush do not last. At last she found it, a patch of soft soil tucked beneath a rock, just deep enough to shelter her from the cold above and the dangers that crawl with night. With patient legs, she began to dig, bit by bit, grain by grain. Her jaws were not built for labour, but she had no choice. There were no workers yet, only her. Hours passed, perhaps longer. At last, a chamber. Crude, small, damp, but it would do. She climbed inside, turned once, and sealed the entrance behind her. Above, the wind passed over the leaf litter. A toad hopped nearby. A shadow flickered in the sky. Maybe a bird, maybe something else. But beneath the rock, there was only stillness. The queen had vanished. Days passed. In the darkness she waited. She did not eat. She did not sleep in the way we know sleep. She simply waited. Inside her the eggs began to form. They came not in clusters, but carefully. One, then another. Small white ovals, smooth and wet and helpless. She tended to them herself, turned them so mould would not grow, licked them to keep them clean, pressed them close to her body for warmth. Soon they hatched, tiny larvae, wriggling and blind, mouths open in need. There was no food. But the queen had prepared for this. Inside her body she carried a store of fat and something else, something more precious. Proteins. Glands deep within her body transformed the reserves she'd gathered before flight into a kind of milk. She regurgitated it gently, mouth to mouth, feeding the young with herself. In some species she would even go further, laying eggs not meant to live, rich in nutrition, and offering them to the larvae. A gift of her own body, again and again, until the first generation was strong enough to feed themselves. She did not leave the chamber, didn't open the sealed door, didn't move more than a few steps. She stayed in silence. This is how civilizations begin, not with noise but with waiting. The larvae grew, Over days and weeks they thickened, curled, then spun a delicate cocoon around themselves. Inside, the transformation began. Limbs stretched, mouth parts sharpened, eyes formed. And then, one morning, the first worker emerged. She was small, pale, her shell still soft from sleep, but she was alive. The queen watched her, antennae gently brushing the newborn's head. There was no celebration, no applause, but if ants could feel pride, perhaps she felt it then, a silent thrum deep in her chest. One by one, more workers awoke. They didn't ask what to do, they simply began. Some turned to the remaining pupae, cleaning them, helping the rest emerge. Others widened the chamber, dug ventilation shafts, carved tiny stairways, opened the sealed doorway to the world and let the forest air drift in. The queen stayed where she was. Her role had changed. Now she would only lay eggs. It is a life without drama, without movement, without recognition. But it is also a life of creation. Every day she lays more, dozens, hundreds. Her body swells as the colony grows. Her chambers deepen. Her children spread outward, carving tunnels like rivers beneath the soil. She does not lead them. She gives no orders. But every life here is hers. Above, the world changes. Rains fall. Grass grows. Birds nest. But beneath the roots, the colony blooms. Workers forage and return. Nurses feed the next generation. Soldiers sharpen their mandibles in preparation for a war that may never come. Every ant knows her task. Every ant moves in rhythm. And at the centre, always, silent, unmoving, unseen, is the queen. Her body may live for years, a decade even. Her daughters will come and go, rise and fall, be born and die in thousands. But she will remain, the quiet pulse at the heart of the earth. To us she might seem imprisoned, alone, but she is never alone. The scent of her fills the tunnels. Her pheromones drift in every chamber, whispering to the workers that she is there, alive, fertile, the colony's future secured, and should she die, should a sickness come, or an accident or old age, the scent fades. Panic begins. Without her, the colony begins to fall apart. They know she is gone, even before her body cools, and unless she has left behind another queen, a new mother, a successor, the colony's days are numbered. But that is a story for another time. For now, beneath the moss and stone, one queen rests. Around her, thousands move with purpose, and through her a kingdom grows. If you could shrink yourself, become no larger than a grain of rice, and sink slowly through the earth, past roots, past stones, past worm tunnels and the soft curve of fallen leaves, you would eventually find something astonishing. A city, not made of steel, not glowing with lights, but alive with breath, with purpose and with silence. A living city, built not by hands, but by mandibles, one grain of soil at a time. This city has no blueprint, and yet it is perfectly arranged. No architect watches from above, yet each passage, each turn, each chamber unfolds with a logic older than memory. It begins, as all cities do, with a shelter, the modest chamber the queen carved with her own jaws, where she laid her first eggs in darkness. That was the seed. From that seed has grown a labyrinth. Walk with me now, softly. The earth is cool, damp, breathing. The tunnel walls are smooth, pressed by thousands of footsteps, burnished by the brushing of delicate antennae and the curve of bodies passing through. Look how it stretches, wide enough for 2 ants to pass, narrow enough to protect. Every few paces, the tunnel widens into a chamber, not random but purposeful. Here, a nursery. Hundreds of pale larvae lie curled in tiny cradles of dust. Workers tend to them, gently feeding them droplet by droplet, turning them to keep them warm. Not one larva will be left alone. Here, care is constant. Beyond this, deeper, you'll find granaries, storage chambers filled with seeds, husks, dried plant matter. They don't rot here, not if the tunnels are built correctly. Some species, like the leafcutter ants of the Americas, take this even further, cultivating fungus gardens underground, feeding them with chewed-up leaves, and harvesting the fungus as food. Farmers in total darkness. The nest grows not in height, like our cities, but in depth. Each layer serves a function. Shallow chambers near the surface absorb warmth. Deeper levels stay cool, steady. The very bottom is where the oldest tunnels lie, carved seasons ago, now quiet, perhaps crumbling, like forgotten streets. And still the city grows. There is no cement, no bricks, only soil, moisture, and intent. Ants dig with their jaws, carrying one grain of sand at a time between their mandibles. They march it upward, hold it high like a tiny boulder, and deposit it on the surface in neat piles, forming what we sometimes see as ant hills. To us it looks like a mound. To them it's a monument. The work never stops. Teams of diggers push forward, clearing new tunnels. Others follow, inspecting, smoothing, strengthening. Some species mix the soil with saliva, creating a form of mortar. Others move sand grain by grain, sorting by size, ensuring walls remain firm in rain and dry in drought. There is no voice directing them, no overseer. The design emerges from their bodies, from instinct, yes, but also from constant feedback. If air grows too thick, they open a shaft. If water seeps in, they dig a drainage route. If the queen's scent grows faint in a chamber, they carve a new path closer to her. Every tunnel carries breath. Cool air sinks down one shaft. Warm air rises through another. The whole city ventilates like a lung. Even the shape of the city is adapted to the world above. In deserts, where heat is cruel, ants dig narrow, vertical shafts to hide from the sun's reach. In tropical forests, they build sprawling networks that hug the roots of trees, anchoring themselves to the pulse of the jungle. Some even build homes in the trees themselves, weaving leaves together using silk spun by their own larvae, creating leafy tents that sway in the sandbonibus. Is not just a shelter, is an answer to the land. And what is most astonishing is always changing. If a path becomes crowded, they widen it. If a tunnel collapses, they reroute. If an enemy breaches a wall, a beetle, a centipede, a rival ant tribe, they rebuild, stronger. Some ants create super colonies, stretching across hillsides and forest floors. In Japan, in Argentina, in southern Europe, there are networks of ants whose cities are not confined to a single nest, but connected across miles, working as one mind. And yet, at the centre of it all, is still the smallest act, a worker, barely seen, carrying a speck of earth in her jaws, just one, over and over, grain by grain. She does not know the full city. No ant does. None sees the whole, but each knows her place, the chamber she works in, the tunnel she patrols, the scent she follows. Together their unknowing becomes a kind of knowing, a collective wisdom not stored in a single brain, but spread like light through 100,000 moving bodies. Above them life goes on. Rabbits pass, snakes slither. A deer drinks from a nearby stream. Humans walk by unaware, but down here the builders continue, silent, patient. They feel vibrations through their feet. The shifting weight of soil tells them where the chamber must go next. A faint change in moisture tells them how deep to dig. They carry out waste, bury their dead, clean the air. Some species even build graveyards, tiny designated chambers for their fallen. This is not chaos, this is architecture. And sometimes, or rarely but wondrously, they leave the ground altogether. Certain ants are weavers. They build in the branches where the light filters through leaves like soft music. These ants use the silk of their own young as thread. The workers hold a larva gently in their jaws and wave it back and forth, drawing silk from its body to stitch leaves together into tents. They do not harm the larva. They simply borrow what it makes. Under these leafy domes, a colony hums in the treetops. In Africa, army ants live without permanent nests at all. Their colonies are mobile, living walls of ants that cling to one another, forming bridges, swaddling the queen in a curtain of bodies. At night they form a bivouac, a shelter made entirely of themselves, pulsing with life and breath, a nest not made of earth but of flesh, and even beneath our feet the sophistication continues. In fire ant colonies, engineers have discovered air shafts and water drainage systems so precise they rival human design. One cast of a single colony revealed towers and chambers stretching meters down, with spiral ramps, broad plazas, and intricate traffic patterns, and every bit of it built by creatures without eyes in the dark. They build by touch, by scent, by history written in dust. But more than anything, they build with unity. There is no ego here, no pride in design, no credit taken. Each worker knows her task and trusts the rhythm of the rest. No part is too small, no action meaningless. The city is alive, and when disaster strikes, a flood, a fire, a footstep, they do not despair. They begin again. The queen is protected, the brood is moved, tunnels are reinforced, entrances are cleared. Ant by ant, grain by grain, the city returns. It may not look like a city to us. There are no glowing windows, no towers scraping the sky. But to those who live in its silence, each chamber is a home, each path a memory. And so, beneath the forest floor, beneath the lawn, beneath the sidewalk crack and the garden bed, cities rise. They do not shine, but they endure. If you were to walk through the forest one morning, barefoot and unhurried, your toes brushing dew from the grass, you might feel it, a faint tickle underfoot, a soft parade of legs and motion. Stop, still your breath, and crouch close to the earth. There, if the light is right and your eyes are gentle, you might see a line, not drawn in ink or chalk, but in living bodies. A slow-moving river of ants, weaving through roots and fallen twigs, each one following the path ahead, as if reading from a script only they can see. No leader walks at the front, no signs mark the way, but still they move certain and smooth, as if pulled by something older than memory. This is the secret of the ants. Their world is made not of sights or sounds, but of scent. Imagine language without words. Imagine maps without paper, conversations without sound, directions written in invisible ink. This is how ants speak. Each ant is a messenger, a writer, a reader, not with her mouth but with her feet, her antennae, and the chemical perfume of her body. She carries with her a library of invisible stories, encoded in molecules too small to see, and with every step she takes she writes them into the world. These molecules are called pheromones. To us they are odourless. To ants they are everything. A trail laid by one ant can guide thousands. A drop of pheromone at a fork in the tunnel says this way. A stronger scent says food is near. A fading one says the path is old, tread with care. Some pheromones mean danger, sharp, urgent chemicals that send nearby ants into a frenzy, jaws snapping, legs trembling with alert. Others soothe, announcing the queen's presence with a warm hum of safety. Communication here is not a sound you can hear. It is a feeling that spreads through soil and stone, winding along roots and drifting into chambers like fog. Watch now as a single forager leaves the nest. She has no map, no instructions, only instinct and an empty scent behind her. Her antennae wave gently, reading the air, brushing the ground. Each step she takes, she leaves behind a thin line of scent, a memory trail. If she finds nothing, the scent will fade, the trail will vanish, forgotten. But if she finds food, a fallen crumb, a sweet drop of sap, the remains of an insect, everything changes. She circles it once, then again. She lays a stronger trail, more concentrated, more persuasive. She returns to the nest with speed, her body vibrating with urgency. Along the way, others touch her antennae, tasting the story on her skin. There is food, she tells them. This is the path. And like water breaking through a dam, the colony responds. A second forager follows the trail, then a third. Each one strengthens it as they go. More pheromone, more certainty. What began as a whisper becomes a song, louder, stronger, clearer with every step. Soon the trail becomes a highway. Hundreds of ants follow the invisible road, back and forth, grain by grain. carrying food to the colony. They do not stumble. They do not ask where to go. The scent tells them everything. But this language is fragile. Sunlight breaks it down. Wind tears it apart. Rain washes it away like ink on paper. And so it must be renewed constantly, faithfully, by the steps of those who believe in it. Ants trust in scent like we trust in memory, and scent, like memory, can deceive. Sometimes two paths are laid, one to a small crumb, another to something sweeter. The ants must choose. The stronger trail wins. But if too many paths cross, confusion spreads. The colony falters. Lost ants wander in circles, unable to decide. A kind of traffic jam of minds. And yet even in confusion the system corrects itself. Trails that lead nowhere fade. Trails that succeed grow stronger. With time the colony edits its own map. What remains are only the paths that serve the whole. Some species take this further. There are ants who use scent to build living maps, branching networks that guide workers from one food source to the next. Some lay detours when obstacles appear, others erase trails after food is gone. It is as though the colony is thinking, not as a single ant, but as a whole. A mind spread across 1,000 bodies. Even the nest is scented. Each chamber carries its own signature, a smell that tells a worker if it's in the nursery, the granary, the queen's room, or the waste zone. Ants don't use names for places, they use identity. A space is known by its scent. Even individuals carry a smell. A worker can tell if another belongs to her colony with one brush of the antenna. If the scent is familiar, she passes. If not, she attacks. No hesitation, no discussion. Smell is law. In some species, this chemical passport is so precise that even a slightly altered odour, from disease or age or mutation, can get an ant rejected, expelled, or worse. But smell can also be used to deceive. There are beetles and spiders who live among ants, cloaked in mimicry. Their bodies secrete the colony's scent, fooling the guards. They walk the tunnels freely, stealing food, even eating larvae, hidden in plain scent. And the ants never know, not until it's too late. Even ants can be tricked by their own language. And yet, despite its fragility, despite the tricks and the rain and the fading signals, the colony thrives. Because the system is not rigid. It adapts. Every ant reads the world, not alone, but together. If a trail is blocked, they find another way. If a scent fades, they test. If danger comes, the alarm spreads instantly. A burst of panic pheromones that sends the workers into chaos or war. And then, as soon as it began, the scent softens, the panic calms, the nest breathes again. Some ants even mark themselves with different scents depending on their task. A forager smells different from a nurse. A soldier carries the scent of battle, sharp and bitter. It's a way of saying, this is who I am, this is what I do. Not in words, but in perfume. In the end, the entire colony becomes a kind of poem, not written in letters, but in molecules. Every step a stanza, every trail a chorus, every chamber a verse. And when the sun rises, and the world above begins to stir, the foragers once again walk out, their antennae brushing the soil, searching for that old familiar path, or waiting to write a new one. There is no talking, but there is understanding. And in the hush of the morning, if you listen with something deeper than ears, you might feel it too. The map, the message, the quiet symphony of scent. They are born in darkness. Not to applause, not to celebration, but to quiet purpose. They wake in the deep chambers of the nest no sun has ever reached. Their eyes, small and simple, see little. Their bodies are soft, trembling with newness. They stretch their legs, test their antennae. And then, without being told, without being shown, they begin. These are the workers, daughters of the Queen, sisters to one another, born not for glory but for service. They have no names, no dreams, no need for recognition. And yet they are the ones who hold the colony together. Everything that moves, that grows, that survives, it is because of them. In a world of silence and scent, they know what to do. Some begin as nurses, staying close to the brood. They cradle the eggs in their jaws, rotate the larvae so they grow evenly, groom them with gentle licks to keep disease away. They feed them with droplets of food regurgitated with care. They clean the nursery constantly. To them, the future smells like milk and silken warmth. Others tend to the queen. They press close to her swollen body, touch her gently with their antennae, feed her from their own mouths, carry away her eggs one by one. She does not command them, and she simply exists, and they come to her like petals around the heart of a flower. Then there are the diggers. With jaws that never rest, they carve the earth. They widen tunnels, build chambers, carry sand, and push out the waste. They dig for hours, even days, side by side, grain by grain, never stopping, never questioning. They have no architect's plan, only the quiet knowledge of the colony's needs. If the air grows stale, they know to open a shaft. If the walls grow wet, they know to dig away. They listen with their feet. They feel with their skin. Some become foragers. These are the ones who leave the nest, who taste the danger of the surface. They step into the light, follow the scent of trails, climb roots, dodge predators, carry food home piece by piece. They find sweetness in fallen fruit, salt in the remains of a caterpillar. Their legs touch the world and their steps write maps in the dust. Every journey is a risk, and yet they go, again and again. Others are soldiers, larger with harder jaws. Their mandibles are sharp, their heads wide like shields. They do not patrol with arrogance, but with stillness. Quiet watchers at the edge of the tunnel mouth, ready if needed to give their lives without hesitation. Not because they were told to, but because the colony is everything. None of them ask for more. They do not seek power or rest or reward. They are not praised for their work. No one thanks them, but they go on, day after day, breath after breath, doing the same task until their bodies begin to slow. And even then, they keep moving. Some die on the trail, curled beside a root. Others vanish in the dark, buried beneath the nest they helped build. There are no funerals, only silence. A worker dies and the colony continues. Another sister takes her place. This is not tragedy, this is devotion. Ants are born knowing they are part of something larger, something without shape, without face, but full of rhythm. A breathing machine made of tiny, tireless lives. Each one is a note in a song they cannot hear, but still they sing. There is no I in this world, only we. They share everything into food, space, breath, labour. If one ant finds a drop of honey, she does not keep it. She returns, leads the others. They harvest together. They feed each other by mouth, through a process called trophallaxis, a gentle sharing not of just nutrition, but of scent, memory, chemical knowledge. Through this, the colony remembers. They even share their roles. A young worker may begin life as a nurse, then shift to building, then become a forager, and at last, a soldier. Their roles are not fixed. They change with age, with need, with the pulse of the colony. There is wisdom here, passed without words, a wisdom in knowing when to step forward and when to step back. Some species take this even further. In honeypot ants, certain workers become living storage. Their bodies swell with nectar until they can barely move, hanging from the ceilings of chambers like golden jars. When famine comes, others feed from them, keeping the colony alive. These ants give up their movement, their freedom, their place in the trail, to become a source of life. In weaver ant colonies, some workers act as clamps, pulling leaves together and holding them in place while others stitch the edges with silk. It may take minutes, even hours, and during that time they do not move, they simply grip, holding the world together with patience. There is no applause when the work is done, they just return to the trail. Even when the colony prepares for war, when rival ants threaten the territory or a predator invades, it is the workers who respond first. They do not wait. They fight as a wall, not as individuals. They bite, they sting, they cling to legs and wings and jaws many times their size, not to win glory, but to protect what they've built. And if they die, their sisters carry them away, not in mourning but in duty, a clean death, a silent goodbye, and still the nest pulses with life. Above them, the forest moves. The sun climbs and falls. The rain patters softly against the leaves. But underground, the sisters go on, always working, always giving. There is something beautiful in such surrender. Not weakness, but strength in knowing that one's life, however small, holds purpose. That to carry a seed or guard a lava or sweep a tunnel clear of dust is enough. Not because it will be remembered, but because it must be done. In a world full of ego and noise, the ant reminds us, there is power in humility, grace in labour, a kind of sacredness in giving your life to something that lives beyond you. So next time you see a trail in the dirt, a shimmer of tiny bodies weaving across the ground, pause, look closely. Each one of those ants is a sister. Not chasing glory, just carrying the world one grain at a time. Every morning, before the heat of the sun stiffens the soil and the wind rises through the trees, a quiet procession begins. Just before the light spills fully through the canopy, long before birds begin their songs, the first shadows emerge from the nest, slow, deliberate, and watchful. Foragers, sisters of the path. They step from the cool silence of the tunnels into a world that shifts and changes with every heartbeat. Behind them the nest sleeps, breathes, waits. Ahead of them the forest stretches wide and wild, thick with scents and danger. But still they walk. They always walk. They do not hesitate. Their antennae sweep the ground like blind fingers reading a forgotten script. They search not for what they know, but for what might be, a drop of nectar hanging from the edge of a leaf, the sweet body of a fallen insect, a cracked seed hidden beneath moss. Their world is not arranged. It is scattered, unpredictable, and full of silence. But still, they read the ground as though it tells a story, and sometimes it does. The earth, though it looks empty, is full of clues. A glisten in the dust means sap. A thin trail of another colony's scent warns them to turn. The memory of yesterday's journey lingers in the air like a ghost. These small workers remember, not in pictures or words, but in smell. And smell is enough. With every step their bodies lay down a thread, a path woven in pheromones, a chemical breadcrumb trail. It tells the ones behind them where to go, how far, and whether it's worth it. If the trail is weak, the food is gone. If it grows strong, the colony stirs. More will follow, more will walk, and the map will thicken with footsteps. The forager is many things. She is a scout, a messenger, a lifeline. She goes where others do not. She leaves the warmth of the nest not once, but again and again, crossing open ground, crawling through leaf litter, climbing bark, slipping into cracks, always seeking, always returning. Some foragers travel only a few meters. Others, in vast colonies, may venture more than 100 meters from home. An enormous distance for a creature barely the size of a grain of rice, and yet they do it, again and again, without question, without rest. She does not eat what she finds, not at first. Her mission is not for herself, it is for the colony. When she finds something, a drop of honeydew from an aphid, the soft flesh of a dead caterpillar, a fallen crumb from a human table, she circles it once, then again, confirming it, tasting it, memorizing its scent. Then she turns and hurries back, following her own fading trail through the tangled chaos of roots and rain-soaked leaves. At the nest entrance she pauses. Others meet her. Antennae touch antennae. She shares the scent, the location, the promise. She does not speak, but they understand, and then they follow. A road is born, not a road made of stone or dirt, but of footsteps and pheromones. The trail begins narrow, a whisper in the dust. But with each return trip, with each grain of food carried back, it thickens. The message grows louder. Ants pour out of the nest in 2s and 3s, then dozens. They follow her steps like music, and the song of the trail echoes across the forest floor. The more who walk it, the stronger it becomes, and so the path lives. But nothing here is guaranteed. The world outside the nest is not kind. A single gust of wind can erase a trail. A sudden shadow might bring a predator, a spider, a bird, a beetle. Steen falls, and the path dissolves into nothing. One moment of hesitation, one wrong turn, and the forager may not find her way back. Some do not. Some vanish into the grass, their trails swallowed by time and scentless silence. But the colony does not stop. Another ant follows. Another map is drawn. The system is not built on perfection, but persistence. And what happens when danger is found instead of food? The forager still returns, but now her scent is different. Alarm, warning, panic. The trail she lays down no longer invites. It repels. Other ants, upon touching it, turn away. They hesitate. They pause. The colony knows. It listens with its feet, its nose, its collective memory. The message has changed, and the trail disappears as quickly as it came. In some species, foragers mark danger with extraordinary precision. A certain molecule here, a stronger burst there. Some even release a trail of retreat, leading others home more quickly, more safely. It is not instinct alone, it is problem-solving. The wisdom of bodies too small to carry thought, but vast enough to carry a world. There is poetry in their motion. Watch them cross a patch of open earth, a small exposed clearing between the roots. To us, it is nothing. To them, it is an open plain, a battlefield. The sun beats down, the ground is dry. But still, they march. Not in panic, in patience. They do not hurry, they do not fear, because behind each one walks another, and behind her, another still. Some carry nothing, rushing to the food. Others carry pieces of seed, insect wings, fruit pulp, held high in their jaws, heavy and awkward. But they do not complain. They do not rest. They carry on. The burden is part of the task, and the task is shared. And always, at the end of the road, is home. The nest mouth never changes, though it may look invisible to us. To them, it is a beacon. It smells like family, like warmth, like safety. The forager steps into the dark, and immediately she is among her sisters again. She passes the food to another. She touches antennae. She might rest just for a moment. And then she turns around and goes again. The cycle never ends. From sunup to sundown, from season to season, foragers walk this long and lonely road. Their work feeds the young, fuels the queen, sustains the army. Their paths right the outer edge of the colony's reach and changing daily, hour by hour, as resources shift and seasons move. In some species they do more than just gather. Leafcutter ants, for instance, harvest leaves not to eat, but to feed their underground fungus. The foragers in these colonies carry pieces of fresh green across great distances, marching in long, shimmering lines. Each ant holds her piece like a flag. At the nest, the leaves are chopped, chewed and stored, not for themselves, but for their fungal gardens. The ants tend to these gardens like farmers, and it is the foragers who keep the crop alive. In desert ants, who forage under brutal sun where no scent can last, the foragers rely on memory of landmarks, the angle of the sun, the texture of the sand, the shapes of stones. They remember their paths using internal compasses, counting their steps, adjusting for every detour. If you move a desert ant to a new location, she will search the ground, lost, not in panic, but in deep silent calculation. Her mind, tiny though it is, holds maps drawn not in lines, but in direction and light. And some foragers even make decisions. If one path to food becomes too crowded, they stop using it. If a new path is shorter, they shift the trail. If another colony's scent is detected, they avoid confrontation, or in some species prepare for war. The choices are not personal, they are part of the collective. A colony does not think with one mind, it thinks with many. But always, the body that makes it happen, that takes the step that carries the load, is hers, the forager, the one who walks alone, who goes out empty and returns full, who carries the weight of the world, one seed, one drop, one breath at a time. When she grows old, she does not retire. She continues until her legs slow, until her jaws weaken. And then one day, she does not return. The trail fades behind her. The scent disappears, but others have already taken her place, and the road goes on. It begins in stillness, a shift in scent, a ripple in the soil, the faint electric tremble that moves through the tunnels like a breath held too long. No cries ring out, no drums, sound. But the colony knows. Beneath the roots, something has changed. Something is coming. Ants do not seek war for pride, for conquest, or for power. They fight because survival demands it. And when the lines between one colony and another blur, When trails cross or chambers touch or food grows scarce, war arrives not with noise, but with precision, silent, swift, unforgiving. The enemies, more often than not, are sisters of a different kind. Ants from another colony, another queen, another scent. To us they might look the same size, same colour, same gleaming armour. But to them, the difference is as deep as the sky. One brush of the antennae, one breath of the wrong chemical signature, and the decision is made. This one does not belong, and she must be stopped. The first encounter might happen along a foraging trail. A scout meets another. Their bodies tense, antennae cross like cautious swords, and then, with no sound, they lunge, jaws open, legs locked. One is dragged, twisted, dismembered. Her scent clings to the ground. It is not forgotten. That is how it begins. Soon, the colony awakens. Soldiers gather at the entrance. Their heads are larger, jaws stronger, some with thick, crushing mandibles, others with stingers tipped with venom that can paralyze or kill. They form a wall at the tunnel mouth, sensing the air, reading the wind for traces of the enemy. There is no chaos. This is not rage. It is response, and it is collective. From the other side, the same unfolds. When two ant colonies go to war, the battlefield is not a plain or a hilltop. It is everywhere, in the roots, in the leaves, across bark and stone and sand. It is fought in darkness, in silence, in thousands of tiny movements that add up to something vast. It is not one battle, it is many, layered and unfolding, like smoke curling through a forest. Some species meet head-on. They charge, thousands pour from their nests, a storm of legs and jaws. They clash at the borderlands, a seething knot of bodies. They bite and twist and sting and crush. The ground becomes littered with legs, with antennae, with the curled husks of the fallen. But still they come. For every ant that dies, another takes her place, and still others fight differently. There are ants who dig beneath enemy nests, collapsing tunnels, suffocating chambers, cutting off breath and food. There are ants who sneak in one by one, laying down confusing trails to lure the enemy's workers away. Some coat their rivals in chemicals that mark them as traitors, turning the enemy's own colony against itself. And some enslave. The Amazon ant is born for battle. Its workers cannot feed themselves, cannot clean the brood. Their only task is war. They raid neighbouring colonies, steal the pupae, carry them home. When these stolen young hatch, they believe they belong. They serve their captors, raise their children, clean their queen. They do not know they were taken. The memory is gone, only duty remains. And the Amazon ants raid again. Each time they bring back more. And so the colony grows, not by birth, but by theft. A society built on conquest and amnesia. But not all ants lose themselves in war. Some fight only when pushed, some retreat when the odds are poor, some send out a single sacrificial scout to confirm an attack. If she does not return, the colony knows. If she limps back coated in the scent of violence, the message is clear. There are ants who barricade their nests. They carry stones, twigs, soil. They seal their entrances tight, not just once but again and again, testing for weak points, building layers. Inside, the workers fall still. The queen is protected. The brood is moved deeper. They wait, not in fear, in preparation. And then, at the right moment, they open the wall and flood out. The battle is not mindless. There is strategy. In some species, workers drag the dead back into the tunnels, not to mourn, but to keep the scent of the fallen close. It stirs something in the others, a kind of remembering, a kind of rage. In other colonies, the dead are burned away, acid sprayed from jaws, cleaning the field of infection, of memory, of scent. Ants do not forget. Some supercolonies stretch for miles, their wars fought over months, even years. Battles that ebb and flow, advancing today, retreating tomorrow, each side probing, testing, pressing at the edges, and all the while the nests pulse with activity. Eggs are laid, larvae are fed, life continues beneath the tension of war, and sometimes, in rare cases, peace emerges. When two colonies share enough scent, through overlapping territories, shared foraging grounds, even mixed ancestry, They may begin to tolerate one another. What was once enemy becomes kin. Borders dissolve, supercolonies merge, the war fades, and the silence that returns is not emptiness. It is survival, but even in peace the memory remains. A trail once stained by blood does not forget so easily. Ants walking those paths move slower, more cautiously. They test the air, they brace, because war may return, one change in scent, one shift in season, one queen lost, and everything begins again. And yet, for all its violence, ant warfare is never wasteful. They do not fight for pride, they do not burn for glory, they fight because the colony is everything, because the brood must live, because the queen must breathe, because the tunnels must not fall. Each ant who dies does so knowing she was one of many, that her body will feed the soil, that her absence will be filled. She is not forgotten, she is absorbed. And after the dust settles, after the last soldier returns, the nest falls silent again. The tunnels are swept, the chambers cleaned, the scent of the enemy fades, life resumes, the foragers return to the surface, the nurses return to the brood, the diggers repair what was broken, and the queen, deep in her hidden chamber, lays another egg, not for conquest, but for continuation, because beneath the roots, life never stops, it only changes shape. The ant does not live alone. Though her world may seem narrow, a tunnel, a trail, a drop of dew beneath a leaf, it is, in truth, a garden woven with lives not her own. Lives that move in different rhythms, speak in different scents, wear different skins. And yet they share the same soil. They cross the same roots. They breathe the same air. In this hidden kingdom beneath the forest's floor, ants are not merely workers or warriors. They are neighbours, hosts, partners, sometimes even prey. And sometimes something stranger, something softer. These are the guests in the garden. Not invited, perhaps, but not always unwelcome. In a clearing near the base of a tree, a line of ants weaves between stems, their bodies glinting in the early light. Among them move aphids, soft-bodied insects, fragile and slow. At first glance they seem helpless, like leaves with legs, but to the ants they are treasure, little fountains of sugar. The aphids feed on plant sap, drinking deep with their needle-like mouths, but they cannot digest it all, and so they excrete the excess as droplets of honeydew, sweet, sticky and rich. The ants come to collect. With their antennae they stroke the aphids gently, coaxing the droplets from them like a shepherd milking a flock. The aphids raise their bodies and offer the gift. The ants drink, carry it home, and return for more. And in return they protect the herd. They chase off predators, guard the leaves, even move the aphids to better feeding spots. When storms threaten or danger stirs in the air, the ants pick up their soft companions one by one and carry them to safety. It is not affection, it is not kindness, but it is care, a strange kind of farming, ancient, solid, and built not on ownership but on exchange. In the branches above, another alliance unfolds. Acacia trees, in some parts of the world, grow swollen thorns, hollow and sharp with space inside for shelter. Within these tiny greenhouses live ants, who defend the tree as their home. In return, the tree feeds them with nectar, not in flowers, but from special glands on its leaves. It offers protein too, in little yellow nubs called Beltian bodies, rich with fats. The ants do not harm the tree. They patrol its surface like sentinels, biting and stinging any insect that dares to eat its leaves. Even animals, grazing deer or climbing monkeys, are driven away by the ant's wrath. The plant feeds its army. The army protects the plant. It is a pact written not in language but in time, and still deeper in the forest other relationships bloomed and quieter, stranger. In the fungal gardens of leafcutter ants, a delicate dance unfolds between farmer and fungus. The ants cut fresh leaves, carry them home, and chew them into mulch. On this mulch the fungus grows. The ants feed the fungus, and then feed on it. But they do not eat the fruiting body, the tall spore-producing part. They eat only the soft, swollen tips. They tend to it like priests in a green cathedral, pruning, feeding, cleaning. and in return the fungus grows, only for them. It has never been found living alone in the wild. Some ants even carry a second ally, bacteria, in tiny pouches on their bodies. These microbes produce antibiotics that help protect the fungal garden from infection. When a parasite fungus invades, the ants smear these bacterial secretions like medicine. A pharmacy on legs, a partnership of three, ant, fungus and bacterium, bound together by survival. Elsewhere, in a shaded grove where humidity clings to the bark and everything is thick with life, you might see something stranger still. A butterfly flutters low, laying her eggs near an ant nest. When the larvae hatch, they begin to feed on the plant, but they also produce a sweet secretion from their bodies. The ants gather around them, drink the fluid, and in return offer protection. The caterpillars, vulnerable and soft, are guarded night and day. And some species take this alliance even deeper. They burrow into the ant nest itself. The workers allow them in. They live among the brood, feeding and growing. When the time comes, they crawl out and pupa nearby. And the ants let them go. A guest raised in the heart of the colony walks away with the wings. But not all visitors come in peace. Among the ants live intruders who wear masks of scent, beetles, crickets, mites, all wrapped in chemical cloaks that fool the colony. They mimic the odour of the queen or the workers, passing unnoticed through the tunnels. Some eat waste, others feed on the brood. Some even beg food from the workers' mouths. They have no duty, they do not help, but they remain, protected by the very deception that keeps them hidden. The ants do not notice, or perhaps in some ancient chemical way they do, and tolerate it, because the garden is not only made of allies, it is also made of thresholds. And on these thresholds live the shadows, those who do not harm enough to be driven away, yet give nothing in return. Hitchhikers, thieves, soft-footed guests who eat the crumbs and sleep near the fire. And still, the ants go on. Some guests, in time, become kin. Others remain forever strangers. But in this layered world of scent and soil, of fungus and fluid and mutual need, the lines are always blurring. In the deserts there are even ants who build their nests beside those of termites, sworn enemies in some places, neighbours in others. The two colonies ignore each other, sometimes even benefiting from shared warmth or airflow. No alliance is declared, no treaty signed. But there is peace, a quiet truce written in dust, and high in the trees, in hollow branches, ants live with frogs. Tiny amphibians tuck themselves into the chambers, laying eggs in the safety of the nest. The ants do not harm them. Perhaps the frog's skin holds a chemical that tells the ants, I am not your enemy. Or perhaps it is simpler, that the frog offers nothing, asks for little, and takes up no space. And so she stays, and so the ant accepts. There is no rule book here, no single script, just a rhythm, ancient and unfinished, of lives learning how to share the same light, the same soul, the same breath. Symbiosis, they call it. But in truth, it is something older than words. It is the art of coexistence, a dance in which each partner moves for the other, not always equally, not always kindly, but always in response. And the ants, for all their discipline and order, allow room for this. They make space beneath their perfect routines for something imperfect, something improvisational, a lizard under the stone, a beetle beside the brood, a caterpillar among the larvae. The garden, after all, is not only for those who plant it, it is for all who walk through it with care. So the next time you see a trail of ants, weaving past pebbles, crawling across stems, know this, they are not alone. Look closer. Among them move the companions, the shepherded, the tricksters, the friends. Some carry food, some carry secrets. Some carry stories that have unfolded for millions of years. Guests in the garden, and the ants, ever faithful, walk beside them, not because they must, but because in a world built from threads of cooperation, even the smallest connection can mean survival. The raindrop and the soldier, trials of a tiny warrior. She stands at the edge of a tunnel, still silent, watching. Her body is strong but small, no bigger than the tip of a matchstick, yet shaped like armour, a thick head with heavy jaws, limbs coiled with muscle, antennae constantly feeling the air. She is a soldier, one of many, not a general, not a leader, Not one who gives orders, but one who guards. One who stays awake when others sleep. One who watches the world just outside the dark. She did not choose this role. It was chosen for her, not by vote or command, but by the soft whisper of hormones inside her larval body. As she grew, something shifted in the chemistry of her tiny form, and when she emerged from the pupa, her shape was already set, broader, thicker, built for conflict. Not to harm for the sake of harm, but to protect, to endure, to stand between danger and the helpless heart of the colony. Most of her life is stillness. She stands guard near the entrance in the shaft of filtered light where root meets tunnel. She does not speak. Ants do not speak. She listens with her feet, her jaws, her skin. She feels the tremble of movement on the ground before it can be seen, the flutter of a leaf, the scratch of a leg, the change in air pressure as something passes overhead. She knows what is wind and what is wing, what is harmless and what is predator. And then comes the raindrop. A single drop from the canopy above, nothing to us, but to her, a falling sky. It slams into the earth beside her like a meteor, sending up dust, splattering mud across her body. It rolls, thick and slow, into the edge of the tunnel, and she moves, not away, but toward it. She throws her body forward, plants her legs wide, and blocks the mouth of the nest. Water rushes at her legs, pushing like a river. She holds, she does not let it in. Behind her, other workers scramble to close off deeper chambers to protect the queen, the brood. But it is she who takes the first force. It is she who stands between flood and family. The rain fades. She does not move. Mud clings to her head. Her legs tremble. But she waits, still guarding the entrance, until the scent of the colony tells her the danger has passed. Only then does she retreat, cleaning her antennae with her legs, piece by piece. And then, without pause, she returns to her post. Because that is what she is. The soldier does not leave the nest often. Unlike the forager or the scout, she does not wander. Her world is close, the threshold, the tunnel mouth, the perimeter of the known. And yet, when danger comes, she is the first to step into the unknown. Her strength is not in how far she walks, but in how firmly she stays. But even stillness has its price. In the shadows of the forest, invaders move. Some come quietly, spiders with fangs sharp enough to pierce her armor, beetles that carry disease, centipedes that snake into tunnels and devour the young. Some come in swarms, rival ants with foreign scents and sharper jaws. When they appear, there is no ceremony, no warning, just a chemical flash of alarm released into the air, and suddenly the colony responds like a wave breaking. She lunges forward. Her jaws snap. Her legs lock around a leg, a wing, a throat. She stings, bites, clings. There is no hesitation. She does not fight with anger. She fights with purpose, not to destroy but to shield. Every bite she takes, every wound she endures is a wall built from pain. A wall meant to keep the brood safe, the queen alive, the garden intact. Sometimes she wins, sometimes she does not return. A soldier's death is quiet. There is no burial. Her body may be carried out, placed among the colony's waste, or it may be left where she fell, her scent fading slowly into the soil. But her absence is not a wound. It is part of the rhythm. The colony does not mourn with sadness. It mourns with motion. A new soldier grows. A new guard takes her place. And still the tunnels breathe. But there are other kinds of war. Subtler enemies. Tiny eggs laid in the cracks of her joints by parasitic wasps. Spores that cling to her body and grow inside her or changing her from the inside out. Infections that twist her mind, make her climb to strange heights and die in the sun. A final act not of choice but of invasion. The soldier is strong, but she is not invincible. Nature is clever, and the battle is never only with tooth and claw. Sometimes it is fought in silence, in shadow, in cells too small to see, and still she guards. Even when the threat is time itself, the body wears down. Mandibles grow dull, antennae grow slow. The scent of her own colony begins to fade from her skin. She still stands at the entrance, but fewer pass by her now. Her legs ache. Her responses lag. She watches the light change and feels something pulling, not from the outside but from within. She walks farther than usual one day. Not into the nest, but away from it. Across a stone, up a root, into the brush where the trail ends. This is not exile. This is grace. Old ants do not die in the nest. They walk out on their own, away from the heart of the colony, where their slowing bodies won't burden the system, where their dying scent won't confuse the others. There is no fear in this journey, only a kind of knowing. The forest takes her gently. A leaf closes overhead. A shadow passes, and the tunnel behind her remains safe, because the soldier did her duty. One raindrop, one battle, one life. In the great swirling web of life where wolves hunt deer and owls chase mice, her story may seem small. But if you crouch low enough, if you listen closely to the earth, to the rustle beneath the roots, you will hear her footfalls in the dust. You will feel the strength it takes to stay, to hold the door closed, to keep the world together, one trembling leg at a time. Seasons in the underground. How ants survive. Time. Time does not pass the same way underground. Above, in the world of sky and wind and shifting light, the seasons come with fanfare. Bursting blossoms in spring, golden fire in fall, the cold silence of snow. But beneath the surface where ants build their lives, the changes are slower, deeper, quieter. A different clock ticks here, one that speaks in moisture and soil, in warmth and stillness, in the slow breath of the earth. And the ants, they do not rush, they do not resist, they move with it, they bend to its rhythm, woven into the seasons like roots in the ground. In the height of summer, the colony pulses like a heart. The tunnels are warm, the brood abundant. Foragers stream in and out in endless lines, returning with sugar, with seeds, with tiny treasures from the sunlit world. The queen lays egg after egg in her hidden chamber, her body bloated and still, a quiet factory of life. Workers move tirelessly, attending the larvae, grooming each other, expanding the nest with jaws and legs and patience. It is a season of motion, of hunger, of building. The air vibrates with the scent of work. Time is fast, busy, golden. But even now, a whisper of something else begins to stir in the soil, a hint of dryness, a drop less dew-bright than the day before. The colony does not panic. It listens. Autumn arrives not with wind, but with silence. Leaves begin to fall above, dimming the light that filters into the nest. The soil cools, food grows scarcer, the lines of foragers shrink. Tunnels that once echoed with footsteps quiet as fewer ants venture out. The brood are gathered closer to the queen. The young are fed less often. The colony begins to draw inward, not in fear but in preparation. The workers carry grains of earth to plug upper tunnels. They deepen the chambers, seeking warmth. They begin to store, not food alone, but warmth, scent, memory. They prepare because they remember. Not as we do with stories and calendars, but in their cells, their instincts, their bones. In some species, special winter ants are born, smaller, slower, built to endure. Their bodies hold more fat, their metabolism slow. They do not forage. They tend the nest through the cold. Others produce no new young as the chill deepens. They fall still, gather tight, wait. In forests where snow will soon lie heavy, the ant world dims to a hush. The queen slows her laying. The air inside the nest cools, thickens, antennae twitch less. Mandibles rest. Above, frost spreads through the bark. Below, the colony folds in on itself like a sleeping lung. And then there is winter. A deep, strange quiet fills the tunnels. Movement stops. The ants do not die, but they do not live as before. Their bodies enter a kind of stasis, not sleep, not death, but something between. Diapause, a pause in growth, a soft resistance to the cold. They cluster together, their bodies sharing heat, their scent keeping time. The queen lies curled and still, guarded not by soldiers, but by silence. The air carries no fresh trail, no trace of food. Only the soft breath of 100,000 hearts beating slowly together beneath the ice. Some will not wake. The weak, the old, those caught in the outer chambers, they freeze, fade, return to the soil. Their bodies will feed the roots. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is mourned. This too is part of the season. And then, one day, a single droplet trickles down through the cracks. It is warmer. The first sign does not come with a trumpet, but with scent, the faint sweetness of thawing leaves, the return of water, the rich breath of softened earth. Antennae begin to stir. Limbs stretch. The colony breathes in deeply, slowly, not all at once, but gradually, like a flower opening to the sun. The queen begins to lay again. The brood are fed. Workers emerge into dim light, tasting the air, reading the ground. It is spring. The world has returned. Some species, like harvester ants, begin their work immediately, unsealing tunnels, clearing debris, re-establishing trails. Others wait longer, cautious, sending scouts to read the season more carefully. Foraging resumes. Life picks up where it left off, as though the colony has simply taken one long breath and now exhales again. But nothing is exactly as it was. Some chambers are abandoned. Some tunnels are lost. The scent of the old queen is fainter. In some nests, she does not return. She dies in the quiet dark, her life ending not in battle, but in the rhythm of time. And in those colonies, something shifts. The workers grow restless, divided. Without her, the unity frays. Some species collapse, fragment, vanish. Others raise new queens, born from special eggs, fed differently, raised in sacred stillness. And the cycle begins again. In tropical places, where there is no snow, the changes are subtler. Rain instead of frost, floods instead of ice. But even there, the colony shifts with the rhythm. In dry seasons, some species seal their nests entirely, conserving moisture, waiting for the rains. Others move deeper underground, following the cool. In flooded forests, ants cling to high roots, to branches, even forming rafts from their own bodies, locking legs and jaws together to float across the water, carrying their queen, their brood, their memory, in a living boat. They are not fragile. They are not foolish. They are built for time. Even the shortest-lived worker, living only weeks or months, carries the instincts of millions of years. She walks trails that were laid before the first human picked up a stone. She builds what others before her built. She waits when they waited. She remembers what they knew, not in thought but in form. The ant's great strength is not her bite, nor her sting, nor her number. It is her patience, her willingness to pause, to endure, to live inside the turning of the world, not outside of it. And so the seasons turn again and again, flowers bloom, fall, bloom again, trees rise and rot, rivers change course, the sun shifts. But the colony endures, it folds, expands, contracts, it breathes, it remembers, it waits, because to be an ant is not only to live underground, it is to live inside time itself. The mating flight, love, death, and the sky above. It begins with a feeling in the soil, a certain warmth, a perfect tension in the air. The rain has passed, leaving behind damp earth and rising heat, and the colony listens. Deep in the tunnels, the workers move differently. They are not cleaning, not foraging, not feeding the queen. They are guiding, tending to strange, silent children. Bodies larger, wings folded like dreams on their backs. These are not workers, not diggers or guards. These are elates, winged ants, born for one moment alone. They have been waiting all season long. They feed, grow, wait. Their wings shimmer in the dark, useless in the tunnels. They cannot fly here in the tight spaces beneath the roots. They are not meant to. Their lives have been carved for something else, a brief, dangerous passage into the light, where the air tastes of risk and the sky opens wide. They do not know what they will find, but they are driven toward it, pulled not by desire, but by rhythm, ancient, wordless, unstoppable. And then the day comes. It always begins with one ant, one nest, one sudden lift. She emerges from the tunnel, not walking, but rising. Her wings unfold with a soft hum, wet at first, then drying in the sun. She shivers. And then she flies. Dozens follow, then hundreds, then thousands. From many colonies, from many nests, they rise together, a shimmering cloud of wings and instinct, filling the air above the fields and trees like a dream breaking open. Males and females both, daughters and sons of separate queens, meet in the sky without maps, without voices, without fear. This is the nuptial flight. A single afternoon, when love, or something like it, pulls them upward. The females fly strong, high, their bodies already heavy with the potential of life. The males are smaller, lighter, built only for speed, for one brief chase. Their only purpose is to find her, to fly beside her, to pass on the thread. There is no courtship, no ritual, just urgency, scent, the briefest connection in the open sky. And then it ends. In mid-air or on the ground, the males reach her. Mating lasts only moments. When it is done, they fall. Their wings break, their breath slows, and they die, not with sadness, but with certainty. They were never meant to return. The males are not mourned. Their bodies feed the birds, the earth, the wind. But their purpose lives on, inside her. She will never fly again. The young queen, now alone, now fertilized, drops from the sky. Her wings, no longer needed, are cast off, pulled away with her legs, piece by piece, as though shedding a past self. She walks across the ground in a daze, searching for shade, for soil, for silence. Not all will find it. Many will be eaten by lizards, birds, frogs, even her own kind. She has no guards, no workers, no colony. She is vulnerable now, soft, wingless, and heavy with the future. And still she searches. She finds a crack in the earth, or the space beneath a stone, or the soft place between roots. There she digs. Her legs are not strong, her mandibles are not wide, but she works anyway, scraping at the earth with the rhythm of survival. The tunnel is small. It is enough. Inside she seals herself away, alone, in the dark. And then the waiting begins. She does not eat. She does not sleep. She lays her first eggs, fragile, shining, quiet. She cleans them, guards them, feeds them, not with gathered food, but with her own body. Her muscles break down, turned into milk, her fat, her blood, her wing stubs, all are converted into nourishment. She becomes the colony's first and only source. The first workers will be born from her sacrifice. Outside, the world forgets her, but inside something has begun. The mating flight is over. The sky is quiet. The scattered bodies are gone, dissolved into the soil. But here, in this silent chamber, a future stirs. A heartbeat no one can hear, a promise too small to see. One queen, one story, beginning again. But not every queen will succeed. Of the thousands who flew, only a few survive. Most will never lay an egg. Most will never dig a chamber. Most will never be remembered. But the ones who do, they become legends beneath the soil. Matriarchs of vast cities, mothers of empires, foundations of 1,000,000 lives. And for all their size, their silence, their solitude, they carry the memory of the sky. She will never fly again, but the wind still lives in her. She will never see the sun again, but its warmth moves through her brood. And each daughter she bears will carry a piece of that one strange afternoon, when the world opened, and the air was full of wings, and the earth briefly lifted its children into the light. This is not romance, it is not tragedy, it is time. And ants, more than most, understand how to move inside it, to offer everything for the continuation of the unseen. The mating flight is not about finding love, it is about letting go of the body, of the sky, of what was, so that something greater may begin. And when the queen's first workers emerge, small, blind, tireless, they will tend her, feed her, build around her. The colony begins not with a war, but with a whisper, not with power, but with giving. And the queen, once a flying spark in a sky full of wings, becomes still, rooted, endless. And far above, where birds now drift through quiet blue, no one remembers the flight. But below, where roots dig deep and chambers grow wide, the echo remains, Humans and ants, paths that cross, worlds apart. They walk beneath our feet, unnoticed, while we walk above them, unaware. We build with steel, they build with soil. We think in words, they think in scent. We live as individuals who gather, they live as collectives who feel like one. And yet, in the quiet corners of the world, where curiosity lingers and eyes soften, the paths of humans and ants have crossed. Not often gently, not often fairly, but often enough to leave a mark. In story, in science, in soil. It is a strange relationship. For most of our history we did not know them, not truly. We saw their trails, their sudden surges through our kitchens, their mounds rising in our gardens like miniature volcanoes. We crushed them beneath our feet without pause. We called them pests, nuisances, invaders, and sometimes they were. Their persistence unsettled us. Their numbers unnerved us. They arrived without warning, ate what we stored, built where we planted, and we responded with fear, with poison, with fire. But even as we tried to control them, we watched them, and in watching, something softened. Thousands of years ago, long before microscopes and field journals, we began telling stories about them. Ants became symbols of hard work, preparation, discipline. In fables and parables, they were the wise ones, the steady builders who saved for the winter, who taught lazy grasshoppers the cost of idleness. We admired their diligence, even if we did not yet understand it. We gave them meaning beyond their bodies. In some parts of the world, ants were seen as sacred. In the highlands of South America, some believed that ant spirits guarded the balance of land and crop. In African folklore, they were clever tricksters or patient helpers, depending on the tale. In Asia, stories were whispered of ants who carried rice grains across impossible distances, patient carriers of life's weight. And still, we knew so little. It wasn't until much later, when we finally bent down close enough, watched long enough, that science began to catch up to wonder. We learned they farmed, like us. Some raise aphids the way shepherds keep sheep. Others grow fungus in dark chambers, feeding it with chewed leaves. They've been farming for millions of years, long before our ancestors ever touched a plough. We learned they built roads, not just trails, but networks, highways of scent, of memory, of motion. Some even mark their paths with tiny stones, grains, or pebbles to guide their return. We realized that under our forests, our sidewalks, our farms, there are cities of their own, not made of concrete, but of chambers and shafts, ventilated, layered, engineered with a wisdom that does not come from a single mind, but from many moving as one. We called it a superorganism. A colony is not a group of ants. It is one being made of many bodies. Like blood cells in a heart, like nerves in a brain, they move with shared purpose. No one ant knows everything. But together they act with eerie precision. We saw them wage wars with strategy. We saw them rescue their wounded. We saw them teach, one ant showing another where food was hidden by leading her step by step. We were amazed, and then unsettled, because in their tiny mirror we saw ourselves, our cities, our systems, our armies, our agriculture, all reflected back to us, stripped of language and ego. The ant does not claim, does not boast, does not question. She simply acts with quiet, unwavering intent. And we wondered, are we really so different? Still, we fear them. Because they are many. Because they move where we cannot see. Because they do not stop. When fire ants flood a home, they do so not out of cruelty, but survival. When driver ants sweep through a forest, devouring what lies in their path, they are not choosing violence, only food. Their logic is not ours. Their boundaries are not ours. And when our two worlds collide, in fields, in homes, in cities, it is often they who lose. We poison their nests, pave over their trails, burn their colonies and gardens where their mounds offend our symmetry. We call it pest control. But rarely do we ask, what were they building? What did they lose? How many generations did it take to build the home we destroyed in a single shovel's turn? And yet, they return, not in vengeance, not in rebellion, but in persistence. A new nest, a new trail, a new beginning. They do not hate us. They do not love us. They move through us, like a quiet current beneath our world, and sometimes we learn from them. Architects study ant nests to build better ventilation in buildings. Computer scientists model algorithms on their foraging patterns. How ants find the shortest path to food becomes the math behind efficient networks, delivery systems, search engines. Medicine borrows from their antimicrobial ways. Their societies whisper answers to problems we still wrestle with. How to cooperate without central control, how to adapt without fear, how to serve without ego. And in rare, beautiful moments, we coexist. In the forests of India, people leave wild figs for ants to harvest. In deserts, nomads follow ant trails to find hidden water. In gardens, some choose to let them be, to let their tiny kingdoms rise among the roots. Their trails pass across patio stones undisturbed. Children crouch near ant trails, eyes wide with wonder, following the line from nest to crumb. Tiny fingers point, whispers bloom. In those moments, there is no fear, only fascination, only awe. And perhaps that is the quiet thread that binds us. Not understanding, not closeness, awe at how such tiny lives can carry so much order, so much strength, so much story. Awe at how something so small can be so vast. We walk through separate worlds, ours ruled by ambition, theirs by instinct. But sometimes we pause long enough to see each other. A human on a trail, a soldier ant on a leaf, each moving forward, each building something we may never fully explain. And maybe that's enough. Not to merge our paths, not to become the same, but to share the soil for a while, to cross in silence, to let the other exist, without conquest, without fear, without forgetting. In the end, perhaps that is all the earth asks of its children, to live, to let live, and to look, once in a while, beneath our feet. Ashes to soil, the cycle of the colony's end. It does not end in fire, not in thunder, not in one loud fall. The end of an ant colony is quieter than most would imagine. It begins not with death, but with slowing. The stillness gathers little by little, like dusk creeping into a sunlit room. The tunnels no longer echo with motion. The lines of foragers thin, the scent of life fades, not all at once, but in soft, invisible pieces. The queen has grown old. She rests in her chamber, no longer laying, no longer fed as she once was. Her body, once vast and swollen with purpose, has begun to shrink. The chemical signals she released, the invisible thread that held the colony together, begin to fray. Without her scent to guide them, the workers grow uncertain. Some continue their tasks. Some wander. Some stop. The colony forgets its own rhythm. There is no mourning, no ceremony. Ants do not grieve the way we do, but something shifts. The energy drains like a tide pulling slowly away from the shore. The old workers die. No new ones are born. The chambers begin to collapse, unmaintained. The fungus garden, if there was one, withers. The aphids are gone. The outer tunnels fill with dust. Above ground, the trail disappears. The line that once shimmered across the bark, across the leaves, is broken now, erased by time, by weather, by silence. Rain comes and there are no soldiers to guard the door. Wind stirs and the entrance caves inward. The forest does not notice. The soil accepts the return. Inside, a few workers remain, loyal, still feeding the queen from their dwindling stores, still cleaning her limbs, though her body no longer moves. And then, one day, they do not rise. The air grows still, the nest breathes out for the last time. And yet, even now, nothing is truly lost. The body of the queen becomes food for the soil. Her form, once the mother of thousands, is taken in by roots, by worms, by beetles that slip into the empty halls. The chambers collapse and become hollows where moisture gathers, where seeds might take root. The scent of the colony fades, replaced by the musk of fungus of the new life. Tiny scavengers wander through, picking at the last crumbs. A curious spider spins her web where the brood chamber once glowed with warmth. The tunnels become passageways for centipedes, for mites, for silence. Life reclaims what life has left. In time, there is no sign of the colony at all, just earth. But if you were to dig very gently, you might find the shadow of a city. Hardened walls shaped by mandibles now gone. A tiny seed nestled in what was once the queen's chamber. A tunnel hardened by thousands of footsteps now filled with dew. This was once a kingdom, and no one remembers. And yet, in some far place in the warmth of a distant sun, a young queen walks alone. She carries the bloodline of a colony she never knew. The memory is not in her thoughts. It is in her marrow, in the blueprints of her brain, in the silent command passed from one body to the next. She flew on a warm afternoon. She shed her wings, she dug her chamber. She began again, because that is the truth of the ant. She is not alone. She is never truly singular. Her life is a link in a chain, a word in a sentence spoken across centuries. Colonies die, but colonies are born. Soil remembers. The earth does not forget. Even in their ending, ants give back. They aerate the ground, enriching it for the roots that will come next. They leave behind nutrients, tunnels, spaces for water to move. Their absence shapes the home for what follows. And in this way, the end is not an erasure. It is an offering. Sometimes a new queen will stumble across an old nest. She will taste the soil, sense its softness, its history soul. She may choose to dig there, among the bones of a former colony. She does not know their names, but she knows the ground is ready. And so the story folds into itself. Ashes to soil, silence to seed, end to beginning. The ants do not fear this cycle. They are part of it. Their greatness is not in how long they live, but in how faithfully they play their part. Each worker builds knowing she will not see the end. Each queen gives everything knowing she will not be remembered. Their legacy is not a monument. It is not even memory. It emotion, continuity, renewal. To watch a colony die is not to witness tragedy. It is to witness a kind of surrender, not of defeat, but of completion. A task done, a rhythm fulfilled, and the earth receives them gently, as it always has, as it always will. And so, beneath the feet of birds, beneath the roots of trees, beneath the footsteps of curious children and passing deer, lie the ruins of 1,000,000 silent cities, the dust of queens, the chambers of old kings without crowns, the scent of once thriving hearts now folded into clay. The colonies end, but the world goes on, and in that going on they live, always.